All right, so now that we can register a user and add them to our database, we want to respond with a special token that's going to have a payload in it. All right, so if you've never dealt with JSON Web Tokens, they look something like this. So this is an example of a JSON Web Token, and there's three parts. And this is jwt.io. If you want to learn more, you can visit this site. But basically, this first part, the red part here, is the header, which has the algorithm and the token type. It's a JWT token. The second is the payload. Okay, this is what we really need to concern ourselves with, because this is the data we want to send. In this case, they're sending this sub number name IAT, which is issued at. So it's usually like a timestamp that it's issued at. And then the last part is the signature. Okay. So what we want to do is generate one of these to send to the user once they register. And then we're also going to send it when they log in, okay, when we have our authentication route. So let's jump back into our users.js. And before we do anything, let's bring in JSON Web Token. So I'm going to not import. So we're not using that syntax. Let's do const JWT and set that equal to require, and it's JSON Web Token, which we already installed in the beginning. So down here where we sent the response of just user saved, obviously that's not what we want to do here. I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to create my payload, which is the object I want to send in the token. Okay, and all I want to send is the user. So I'm going to send the user, which is going to have an ID, and I'm going to set that to user.id. Okay, that's all I want to send in the payload is the user ID, because with that user ID we can access, for instance, all the contacts that the logged in user has. Okay, we can get specific data based on that user's ID. So now to generate a token, we have to sign it. So we're going to take JWT and we're going to call .sign, which takes in a couple parameters. The first one is the payload. We could put this object directly in here, but I think creating a variable makes it a little cleaner. Next is the secret. Okay, the JWT secret, and you should not just put it right in here. You should have it in some kind of config. Now, if you remember, we have our default.json. So I'm going to go ahead and put a comma here, and then let's add in JWT secret. And you can set this to whatever you want. I'm just going to set it to string secret. And then in order to use this in users.js, we have to bring in config. So let's say const config equals require config. Okay, and then down here where we have to add the secret, we can just say config.get and then pass in what we want to get, which is JWT secret. All right, and then the next parameter is an object of options. I'm just going to save this. Oh, I thought Prettier would format it. But in this object of options, I'm going to set an expires in, because we can set our token to expire. Now, typically, I usually put 3600, which is an hour, so 3600 seconds. But while we're testing and stuff, if you guys took my MERNStack course, we did the same exact thing. I think I forgot to set it back, but I usually use 3600 in production, so I'm going to add a couple of zeros just so it doesn't expire while we're testing. And you don't need an expires, I just prefer it. I prefer for it to just, get destroyed after an hour, and then they can just log back in. So let's see, we have that. The next thing we want to do, let me see, JW sign, we have our payload. Next parameter after the options is going to be a callback. So we're going to have a function with a possible error and then the token itself. So this will be an arrow function. And let's just check to see if there's an error. If there is, then we're going to throw that error. And then if not, we're going to just res.json and we're going to pass in object with the token. Okay, so all this is going to return is the token. So we'll save that. And I think that's correct. Yeah, so let's go ahead and try this. So we'll go to Postman. Actually, you know what? Let's delete the John Doe user from the database. So from MongoDB Atlas, I can just click this delete button here, and that'll delete the user. You could even delete the whole collection if I delete users, because it'll just recreate it. Okay, so now you can see we have nothing here. So let's go back to Postman. Let's send this exact same thing. And now check out what we get back, an object with a token. And if I take this JWT right here and copy it and go to jwt.io and put it in here, you can see exactly what we got. So the algorithm and all that stuff is the same signature, but check out the payload. So in our payload, we have the expired date, or expired at, whatever expires in. We have the issued at, so this is when it was issued, and then we have the user ID. Okay, so this is very important. The token includes the logged in user's ID, and we can use that for pretty much anything. So what we need to do is create a piece of middleware that will extract this. First of all, check the token that's sent in the header, and then extract the ID from it, and we can do what we want with that ID. Now, we're not going to do that just yet. What I want to do first is create the login, because right now we can register a user, we can get the token, but we want to be able to log in with a current user and also get the token so that we can authenticate. Okay, so that's what we're going to work on next.